title of today's lecture is A Totally New Approach to Education. A totally new approach to education. Now, when the class is over, I know none of you have ever had this experience in your schooling. I certainly never did. Your professor, your teacher, your instructor never said to you, well, now that you've regurgitated what I want to hear, you've given back to me on the exam, whether it's a multiple choice test or sentence completion or essay, now that you've given me what I wanted to hear to satisfy what I need to know about what you know, what do you want to remember in 10 years from now? What do you want to remember? What's this education really for you? Now, what does it tell us that nobody asked their students that question? There's probably maybe just a few in the world that ask it. I certainly in all my years never heard it asked. And I'm sure all of you who are listening have never had that question asked. Now, that makes our current educational system fraudulent. It actually is a tremendous weakness in the educational system as it exists. Now, certainly in the totally new approach to education, the intention would be that the knowledge, the educational process that you're integrating would be with the intention of you having it for a lifetime. And if you couldn't see that it's of such value that you want it all your life, to be honest with you, I wouldn't want you to learn it. I would want you to see right up front how this is important knowledge for you over your lifetime. So I want to then get your reactions to that idea of knowledge for a lifetime and the importance of it, or certainly having the intention of, I want to remember this all my life. I want to remember it. It's so important to me. It makes so much sense to me. It helps me conceptualize my universe to such a high degree that I always want to remember these basic concepts. It may not be about specific details, maybe about really large ideas. Now, Mary, that's a new concept for you, isn't it? No teacher ever asked you what you want to remember for the rest of your life, or what makes sense to you now that you finished your exams, did they?
No, they didn't.
And you're a highly educated person. It was never done. Why is that? Why, I mean...
Highly educated, but...
Excuse me? Why were you never asked that? Why would all the many professors, you probably have had, what, 50 to 100 professors over your lifetime of higher education?
Not that many, but quite a few.
30?
Yeah, about that many.
30 professors, highly educated men and women. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very learned, very proficient. And yet these scholars, these experts, never asked you that question. Why? No. That's not. Why wasn't it in the curriculum?
I don't know.
It's because they didn't care. They didn't care. If they cared about your true education, what matters to you, you didn't matter.
Yeah.
If you mattered, they say, well, Mary, you've learned all of this. What does this make sense that you want for the rest of your life? If they cared about your education, they were concerned about what they had to teach. They weren't concerned about your life.
Yeah.
Not one of them. They wanted to learn what they had to teach. They were not concerned about what you really wanted to keep the rest of your life. Not one of them. And I'm sure they were very caring, some of them, extremely knowledgeable, caring in their own ways, but caring about what? Caring that you learn the materials they want you to know, caring that you get through the program, caring that they can keep their job or get promoted to tenure or whatever. But what you will need for your lifetime, which will be valuable for you, there was zero concern. I probably had 50 to 100 professors over my lifetime. Not one of them ever asked that. They're a victim of the system. They are they don't. How much does it take to do it? To say, okay, you finished the exams, you finished with my course. Now, before you leave this room, take 5 minutes and just write down what you want to remember in 10 years from now. Forget about the rest of your life. Even if they're a victim of the system, not one even thought to do that. How about you, Antoinette? Did anybody say to you, Antoinette, now that you've finished these exams, what do you want to remember 10 years from now or the rest of your life? Was that question ever posed to you? And how many teachers would you say you had? 20, 100? How many would you say? Just roughly.
Oh gosh, I would say anywhere between maybe 30 to 50.
30 to 50. And many of these were PhDs?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
PhDs. Very knowledgeable, weren't they?
Very knowledgeable.
Very competent and articulate, weren't they?
Were they articulate?
Very articulate, very bright.
Very articulate. Oh, yes.
Very bright.
Mm-hmm.
Probably very high IQs.
Probably. Well, they appeared to have high IQs. Yeah.
Now here, with all that intelligence, with all that education, and in the important position they were in, not one of them said to you or to the class, take 5 minutes. Now that you spent literally thousands of hours preparing for this class, studying, take 5 minutes for you. What do you want to remember the rest of your life, or at least 10 years from now? Why is that? How come not one of them took a minute out of their time at the end to have you do that? Why?
Well, the whole thing is after you're finished taking the exam, everybody uses this term cramming for exams, and all you're interested in is getting the correct answers. Whether you remember any of that 2 minutes later, it doesn't matter. It's just getting the correct answer, getting the grade, and then moving on to your next subject.
And you don't care if you forget it the next day, do you?
No, you don't. You don't really care.
So you can't really say you have an education.
Yeah, keeping it in your brain while you're taking the test, and then once you're finished, you might as well just, it could be gone that same instant once you turn that paper and it's done.
So how can we then say you have an education? You have this education. You got an education. I mean, if you had it, you lost it. You lost your education.
Yeah.
So they never. But why didn't they ask the question? Why wouldn't a reasonable person? I realize it wasn't in their curriculum to ask it, but even it's not in the curriculum. Some of these people are really devoted. I mean, they've spent so much time and effort studying and writing and contributing. Why wouldn't they take a minute and say, students, now that you've finished, I want you to stay here for 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, after 1,000 hours of your time, and write down what you want to remember 10 years from now. Forget even your lifetime. Why? Why didn't they ever say that? What do you make out of that, Antoinette?
That's a good question. I don't know, because really looking at the bigger picture, that would be just a common sense question.
Well, I say they didn't care. They only cared that you learn what they want you to learn. They knew you were going to forget it. They didn't care if you forgot it the next day. They didn't care if you learned it if you forgot it the next day. They were paid to do a job. They did the job as defined. But see, the policy in my educational system, a totally new approach to education is, again, if the intention is for it to be an education for a lifetime. And not only that, I would want you to pass the knowledge down to your loved ones, to your children. Particularly certain of the information would be something I'd want your children to learn, your nieces and nephew, your parents, your loved ones, to pass it down. I'm not satisfied that just you got the education. What of this education can you pass on to others? Also, that helps you integrate it. The best way to deeply integrate your knowledge is to teach it. So I would want you to bring it down to a level that your young nieces and nephews can learn, or bring it up to a level that you'd want to tell your parents. You say, Mom, Dad, I'm excited. Here's something I'd like to tell you. You know, we put all this money into my education. Here, I want to bring back this jewel for you. Here, there's this. What do you think? Is this something you'd want to remember? So the whole idea is knowledge. It's not just the educational system as the new educational approach. It's not just a knowledge for the identified student. No. It's knowledge to be passed down over the generations, a certain portion of it to be passed along. Not all of it, but a certain portions of it, particularly how to deal with your thoughts, a certain health issues and prevention of disease knowledge. That should be passed along.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
and so You have to you say, let's go home and you have a niece and nephew. How many of you want to tell that niece and nephew? Say, you raise your hand. Somebody doesn't raise them. Well, how come you don't want to? Well, I don't want to for this reason. Well, listen, let me show you why you want to, and show them why they want to pass it on to their loved ones, because it's that important. Now, if you don't think it's that important, you're not going to tell them to do that.
Right.
So part of the system is educating others. And isn't that one of the best ways to fully integrate the knowledge yourself?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I know no teachers ever said, pass this knowledge along, have they?
Well, no.
No. So they're not only saying, what do you want to remember in 10 years from now? They're not even telling the people to pass the knowledge on. Just say, just keep it for yourself for the exam, and I don't care what you do with it afterwards. I don't care if you forget it 2 minutes later, if you teach it to somebody, you don't teach it to somebody. I don't care. I don't care about what it does for society. I'm just being a professor, giving you this knowledge, and that's my job. Well, it's not. Your job goes to, because I'm defining the function of the educational process to uplift society for at least 1,000 years. Well, the only way you're going to do that is you've got to pass that knowledge along. It's got to go to your children, your nieces, your nephews, your parents, your friends, anybody you love. You say, I want you to know this. I want you to have this. Listen, people who who truly accept their religious beliefs, they accept Jesus Christ, or they accept Baha'u'llah, or they accept Muhammad, they want to share it. They pass the knowledge along. They pass the scripture along. They say, well, look, the promised one has come. The Messiah has come, and here's the teachings. I mean, they pass it along, right?
Yeah.
They pass that knowledge along. Why? Because it's great knowledge. Ha! And the religious teachers say, pass this knowledge along. This is valuable. Pass it along. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Give it to your children. Give it to your parents. Give it to your friends. Give the good news. Right?
Yeah.
So this other knowledge, they must not feel that passionate about. Here's some knowledge about life, how to make a living, how to deal with hardship and loss and setbacks and failures, and how to start a business. Pass it along. They're not telling us to do that. Well, in a totally new educational approach, we are going to be telling people to do that. So do you see what I'm talking about when I say an antiquated system of education? Do you see why I'm talking about a totally new approach to education, why we need it? Do you see that, Mary?
Yes, I do.
Antoinette, you see that?
Oh, absolutely.
Now let's take it a step further. Do you know it's very good that people learn knowledge and have answers? Isn't that wonderful that people can answer things? People ask them questions and they have answers. That's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Yes. But that's only half the equation. Really, students should be assessed and encouraged to ask the right questions. Asking questions, I mean, that's as important or even more important. Yes, have the knowledge so you can give answers to the questions. But part of the test in a totally new approach to education is having students write questions for a hypothetical student to answer.